Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to join today's session. Before we start this session, let me introduce myself, and then Abhishek will introduce himself. Okay, myself Amit Salvi. I'm a senior solution architect, Salesforce architect in Godrej Infotech, having 18 plus years of experience, and basically looking after the Salesforce practice in the Godrej Infotech. Okay. Abhishek, can you introduce yourself quickly?
Yes, thanks, Amit. So, team, I have joined Godrej 1 year ago, and I have been working as a Salesforce project manager. I also have around 15 years of experience and looking after Salesforce project deliveries. So today, along with Amit, Amit will be explaining this PPT to you. However, I will be adding most of the use cases that we have been implementing for partners. So over to you, Amit. Thank you.
Thanks, Abhishek. Thank you so much. So let me start with the agenda, today's session agenda. So what we are going to cover that the the Salesforce CPQ to the Revenue Cloud, should we migrate, rebuild, or the way? This decision is kind of looking all the customers who are kindly currently using the Salesforce CPQ, and they wanted to migrate or maybe redesign or rebuild or wait till maybe get more details about the Revenue Cloud. Then we will cover the why are we having this conversation, the state of the CPQ, current state of CPQ, what is Revenue Cloud. We will cover the what is Revenue Cloud, uh, what has actually changed in the CPQ as well as the Revenue Cloud. Then we'll discuss about the options which we are talking about. We should migrate or rebuild or wait till we will get more idea about the Revenue Cloud. Then we'll discuss about certain decision framework, maybe for considerations, what we feel that is important for taking the decision for this migration or the rebuild or the wait decision. What are the top mistakes what we found while doing this migration or rebuilding or this activity from the CPQ to the Revenue Cloud? The key takeaways from our previous experiences. Abhishek will cover the customer scenarios, and then we will move into the question and answers. Hope I'm loud and clear, guys. Pooja, Purva.
Yes, Amit. Yes.
Yes, your voice is audible.
Okay. So, how many of you have heard at least one of these statements in last 6 months? That is, Salesforce CPQ is going away. Everyone needs to move Revenue Cloud immediately, or migration is straightforward or mostly automated, or it's too early. We should wait and see what happens. This is all the Salesforce customers is having all these kind of questions. If you are like most organizations, we are speaking with today, you are probably heard all these four questions. So let's understand the current market reality, what is available currently. One of the biggest challenge facing Salesforce customers right now isn't the technology itself. It's the sheer volume of conflicting advices. So suppose if you are talking to the account executive from the Salesforce, he may encourage an accelerated move towards the Revenue Cloud because he wanted to kind of have Revenue Cloud customers will be available. The implementation partner may advocate for transformation project, means he will help you to transform or redesign your CPQ to the Revenue Cloud. An architect may focus on the technical limitations. Basically means the CPQ, what are the technical limitations, and the Revenue Cloud, what are the technical limitations. And maybe the industry peers may share stories ranging from huge successes to significant concerns. And while each perspective may be valid, there are often based on the different experiences, different business models, and different level of complexity. And the result is that many organizations are struggling to separate facts from the assumptions. And that is the reason they are having this question. Is CPQ actually being retired? How urgent is this decision? What happens if we don't move right away? How much efforts will migration will require? And should we migrate our current solution, redesign it completely? So these are reasonable questions, and we are not denying that. In fact, they are exactly the questions leadership teams should be asking before committing millions of dollars and years of organization change. And what we have found is that many conversations starts with the technology. People immediately jump into the features, roadmaps, and the migration tools. Is that the right approach? The first question shouldn't be what is Salesforce recommending? The first question should be what business problem are we trying to solve? Because a recommendation that makes sense for the high growth SaaS company may be completely wrong for the global manufacturer. So rather than telling you that everyone should migrate or that everyone should wait, that or that rebuilding is always the best approach, today's session will take different part. We are going to evaluate this decision through a practical business lens. We will look at what is exactly changing in the Salesforce ecosystem, what Revenue Cloud offers compared to the CPQ, the risk and the opportunity associated with each path, the factors that should be driving your decision, and the framework you can use to assess your own situation. So why are we having this conversation? So before we talk about solutions, I'd like to step back and discuss why organizations are having this conversation in the first place. 5 years ago, when companies evaluated the CPQ platforms, the discussion was relatively straightforward. The primarily objective was to make sales team more efficient by automating code creation, applying the pricing rules, managing discounts, routing approvals. At that time, that made perfect sense because most businesses were selling relatively simple product through relatively straightforward commercial models. But the business landscapes has changed dramatically. Today, organizations are not just selling the products, they are selling the bundles of products and services, subscription, recurring revenue offerings. And as a result, the expectations from the code to cash platform have expanded significantly. And that is where the first expectation from the customers is how quickly can we introduce a new products, the services, or the offerings into the market. In many organizations, launching a new offerings requires multiple systems updates, configuration changes, testing cycles, and their IT department involvement. And from the business leader point of view, what they want ability to respond to market opportunities in days or the weeks, not in months. The second expectation is subscription-based business models. So many companies are shifting from one-time transaction to the recurring revenue models. Third expectation, we are also seeing increasing the adoption of consumption-based pricing. The customer want to pay for what they actually use. This introduces significant complexity into the pricing, the billing, renewal model, and the revenue forecasting. The fourth expectation is automated contract management. The contracts have become much more than documents. They define the commercial terms or obligations, renewals, amendments, pricing adjustments, and the compliance requirements. And the business leaders are looking for ways to automate the contract lifecycle management and reduce the manual intervention throughout the customer journey. The fifth one is the billing integration. The historical quoting and the billing were often treated as a separate processes. Today, the organization wants seamless flow from quote to order to contract to invoice. And the last one is the revenue visibility. Executives increasingly want a real-time visibility into the revenue, not just booked revenue, but recurring revenue, renewal opportunities, and pipeline health. So when we put all these trends together, a very important question arises. If you were starting today with the blank sheet of paper, if you had no legacy processes, no historical constraints, no existing technology decisions, would you design your code to cash architecture exactly the way it exists today? Would you build the same integration? Would you create the same handoff between your sales, operation, finance, and the customer success department? Would you use the same platform for the next 5 to 10 years? When we ask these questions to the customer, the majority of answer is probably not. Not because their current solution is broken, not because it failed, but because the business has changed faster than the technology architecture supporting it. And the requirements that drove decision 5 years ago are often very different from the requirements driving growth today. So let me cover the current state of CPQ. So let's start with the honesty. Salesforce CPQ is not broken. In fact, many organizations around the world are successfully running very large business on the CPQ today. It has helped companies standardize quoting, improve sales productivity, support complex revenue models. What we are seeing across many organizations is that as a product, the pricing models and the business requirements evolve, certain challenges naturally begin to emerge. And we will just walk through three of the most common challenges what we found. The first challenge was the product complexity. When many CPQ implementation were initially deployed, the product catalog was relatively straightforward. The organization might have had handful of products, a few pricing rules, and the simple code generation process. Now we are dealing with product bundles. There are subscription-based offerings, multi-year agreements, users-based or the consumption-based pricing models, promotional pricing. All these are the customer-specific negotiation and the requirement. Each of those business requirements individually makes perfect sense. The challenge that every new requirement adds another layer of logic into the CPQ environment, and the business become more agile, the quoting process can become more complex to the support. The second challenge is the customization. The second challenge states that many CPQ implementation we are looking at today were originally deployed 5, 6, or even 7 years ago. During that time, the business did not stand still. New products were introduced, sales team requested enhancement, operation teams needed additional controls, or finance team required more pricing governance. And the way organization typically respond is by building, adding additional layers of custom code, creating a custom plugins. They develop a custom approval workflows. They build the integration and the workarounds to address the specific business needs. Again, none of these decisions were wrong. Most were entirely justified when they were made. And the third challenge is the technical depth. This is often the one of the challenge that resonates most strongly with the leadership team. If you're, we ask the simple question to the leadership team. If your lead CPQ architect or the primary CPQ administrator left the company tomorrow, how confident are you that someone else could immediately step in and effectively support the environment? And honestly, that question usually generates a little nervous laughter because in many organizations, years of customization, undocumented business logic have become concentrated in very small number of individuals. And when that happens, the organization create a dependency risk. This is what we mean by technical debt. It's not necessarily visible day to day, but it accumulates quietly until it starts impacting agility and innovation. So let me move to the what is Revenue Cloud. What Salesforce is now adding to the Revenue Cloud. Okay. So one of the biggest misconception is that the Revenue Cloud is a simply next generation of CPQ. That's actually not the case. CPQ and Revenue Cloud are related, but they solve different business problems. CPQ is primarily goal to help sales team configure products, calculate pricing, and generate the accurate code and their PDF, quickly share it with the customer. The Revenue Cloud starts where the CPQ traditionally stops. So CPQ answers the questions, how do I create the best code? Where the Revenue Cloud answers the question, how do I efficiently manage everything that happens before, during, and after the code becomes customers? That includes the quoting, contracting, order management, fulfillment, the subscription changes, billing, invoicing, payments, the overall customer revenue journey. The focus shift from the quote management to the revenue management. So I'll just take one example here. I guess all we are doing the Amazon or e-commerce purchase, correct? So let's use the Amazon purchase example. So where CPQ is equivalent to the shopping cart experience, right? So you select the products, configure the options, apply discounts wherever it is applicable, calculate the cost, and finally click buy now. This is what we are currently doing. This is kind of a traditional CPQ way. But what happens next? That's where the Revenue Cloud comes into the play. Once the order is placed, the business needs to process the order, which means there has to be an integration between your ERP, reserves the inventory, correct? Ship the product, generate the invoices, collect payment from the customers, handle returns or exchanges if they wanted to kind of return their products or exchange their products, manage subscriptions if applicable. If the customer is moving into the subscription model, they wanted to manage and track ongoing customer value. The quote or the cart is just one step. Revenue Cloud manages everything that turns that transaction into the actual revenue. That is where the Salesforce is coming with the overall revenue lifecycle management, starting from the customer inquiry to their invoicing to the payment receivables, everything, and they are bringing all your the functions like sales, service, finance, operation, the leadership team into one together platform, right? So what has actually changed? So whenever a customer hear the term Revenue Cloud, one of the first question that comes up is, do we need to start over? Means if we wanted to start, suppose we are using the Salesforce CPQ and Salesforce account executive is coming and saying that, okay, you need to migrate to Salesforce Revenue Cloud, or the questions comes in our mind that do we need to start over? And that's a very understandable concern, especially from the organization that have invested heavily into the Salesforce CPQ over several years. The good news is that moving to Revenue Cloud does not automatically mean throwing away everything you have built into the Salesforce CPQ. Many business processes, commercial models, and the customer requirements remain the same. However, there are several fundamental and the foundational concepts that have evolved and changed by Salesforce into the Revenue Cloud. And understanding these changes is critical for planning the successful transition into the Revenue Cloud. The first concept is the product model. Let's start with the product model. In Salesforce CPQ, products were often built around the specific CPQ constructs and the relationships. The Revenue Cloud introduces a more flexible, scalable product architecture that is designed to support a wider range of business models, including the subscription, users-based offering, services bundles, and future product innovations. However, the flexibility comes with the responsibility. Design decisions become even more important. In many ways, the Revenue Cloud gives architects more freedoms, but it also requires stronger governance and design discipline from the beginning. So whenever we wanted to kind of configure the product into the new Revenue Cloud, we need to have a proper design, proper governance, and the design discipline and the best practices from the beginning. The second major change is the pricing. The Revenue Cloud introduces a more modern pricing framework designed to support increasingly sophisticated pricing strategy. So many organizations today are moving beyond simple one-time product pricing. They need subscription pricing, consumption-based models, tier pricing, negotiated rates, or promotional pricing. And customers are evolving their pricing mechanism and the way of their selling models. The Revenue Cloud pricing engine is built with these requirements in mind. From the business perspective, this means the pricing can become a strategic differentiator rather than the technical limitations. For sales team, pricing can be more dynamic and responsive. For the business leader, it provides a greater flexibility to launch new offerings without requiring extensive customization each time. The last but not least, the life cycle management. The third area, often where organizations see the greatest long-term value, which is life cycle management. Historically, many companies have treated quoting as a standalone activity. A quote is generated, approved by respective team members, converted to an order, and then responsibility shifts to the another team or another system. This is how the traditional CPQ or the Salesforce CPQ work. The Revenue Cloud takes a much broader perspective. Instead of focusing only on a quote creation, Revenue Cloud aims to connect the entire revenue lifecycle from product configuration, pricing to contracting, ordering, fulfillment, renewals, ongoing revenue operation. This creates a more connected processes and reduces the handoffs that often cause delays, data inconsistencies, and operational inefficiency. So when we ask what has actually changed, the answer is not that everything is different. The biggest shift is that the Revenue Cloud moves beyond being just a quoting solution. It introduces a more flexible product model, more powerful pricing framework, and a life cycle centric approach that connects revenue processes end to end. So now I will move to the options which we wanted to discuss, which is should we migrate or should we rebuild from the scratch or should we wait? Okay, so let's start with the first option, the migrate. When organizations begin a modernization initiative, migration is often the most comfortable choice. It's familiar, predictable, and appears to carry a less risk. From the business perspective, this approach makes sense a lot. The organization has already invested significant time, their efforts, the budget in building the existing solution. Team understand how it works. Users are familiar with the processes and the stakeholders often want to minimize the change. Because of that, migration offers several attractive benefits. So what are those? The first, it typically enables the faster adoption. Since much of the existing functionality is retained, organization can move more quickly than if they were designing a completely new solution onto the new platform. Second, it creates a less disruption of end users. Many business processes remain unchanged while doing the migration, reducing the training requirements and helping users transition more smoothly. And we can see that there is a less effort for the change management. So a successful migration requires a careful assessment. So we cannot say that it is a lift and shift that, okay, Salesforce CPQ, these are the configuration, these are the customization. We can lift and shift to the Revenue Cloud. That is not the case. A successful migration requires a careful assessment. We need to identify what should be moved as is, what should be optimized, and what should be modernized, and what may longer provide business value at all. Migration can absolutely be right strategy, but it delivers the best results when it's approached as a opportunity to improve, not just relocate. So now let's discuss the second option that many organizations initially resist. The moment the words rebuilds come up, I usually see the same reaction. People immediately think about there will be a more cost. We need to invest more efforts, more time will be required, and more risk. And to be fair, those concerns are valid. A rebuild is not the easy part, it's not the fastest part, and it certainly isn't the lowest upfront investment. But let's look at it from the different perspective. What if we rebuilding isn't about recreating what you have today? What if it's about eliminating everything you no longer need? When organizations have been operating a platform for 5, 10, or maybe 15 years, their system often accumulate layers of complexity, be it like custom workflows, custom codes, special exceptions in the pricing and approvals, manual workarounds, processes designed for business requirement that may not even exist anymore. Over time, these additions become part of the system and people begin to assume they are all necessary. So when a migration project starts, common mindset is let's move everything, every customization, every workflow, every integration, every form, or every exception. But that's where an important question should be asked. Do we really need it? Do we really need all these exceptions needed? So we worked with the organization where the migration assessment uncovered hundreds of customization and that had been built over many years. Initially, the expectation was that all those customization could be migrated to the new platform. But once the business team stepped back and reviewed all the actual value of each component, something interesting happened. Many of these customization were no longer required. Some were duplicates. Some addressed problems that no longer existed. Some were replacing functionality that the modern platform already provided out of the box. So how do we move what we have? What should the future state actually look like? Yes, rebuilding typically requires greater investment at the beginning, but in many cases, it can reduce long-term operational cost, decrease the support effort, improve the user experience, and significantly lower technical debt. So while rebuilding may appear to be the most expensive option on the day one, it can sometimes be the most cost-effective options over the next 5 to 10 years. What is the third option? Wait, let's talk about the third options. And honestly, it's the option that doesn't get enough attention in the technology discussion. That option is simply wait. In many transformation conversations, there is an assumption that newer automatically means better and that every customization and organization should immediately move to the latest platform. But that's not always the right business decision. If your current CPQ implementation is meeting the business requirement, users are comfortable with it, sales teams are productive, you are not experiencing significant operational challenge, there may be no urgent need to make a change today. Think about what platform migration actually requires. It's organizations choosing to wait should still actively monitor several factors while doing the wait and watch. Changes in licensing and the support timelines, new capabilities that could create the measurable business value, increasing maintenance cost of current solution, emerging business requirements that current technology may struggle to support. In other words, waiting doesn't mean doing nothing. So technology strategy isn't about moving first. It's about moving at the right time. If your current CPQ platform is delivering a value and supporting a business objective, waiting can be a perfectly valid strategy as long as it's an intentional one. So with this, I will be moving to the decision framework, which will help the customers to take the right decisions with the four consideration factors or the four consideration parameters. This is probably the most important slide of today's discussion or the session because it brings together everything we have discussed so far. The right choice depends on your organization priorities, business objectives, and constraints. These frameworks provides a structured way to evaluate which approach is likely to deliver the best outcome. So let's walk through each of these decision criteria, the business growth and the future strategy. The first consideration is the direction and the pace of business growth. If your business model is relatively stable and the current application continues to support strategic objectives, migration may be sufficient. In this scenario, the primary goal is to modernize infrastructure while preserving the existing functionality. However, if the organization is entering a new market, launching a new services, expanding rapidly into the different regions, or fundamentally changing how it operates, then rebuilding becomes the increasingly attractive. A rebuild provides an opportunity to redesign processes, improve the scalability, introduce the modern capabilities, and create an architecture that supports future growth rather than simply maintaining current operations. The second one is the customization complexity. This is this second factor where we will understand the level of customization within the current environment. This is often one of the biggest decision drivers. Organizations with heavily customized applications typically face greater migration challenges. Existing customer code may rely on the legacy technologies, undocumented business rules, or complex integrations, outdated architectural patterns. All these are kind of technological challenges and the customization challenges. In these cases, migration can become increasingly complicated and costly because you are effectively carrying a technical debt into the new environment. So a rebuild allows teams to simplify your processes, eliminate the complex or the obsolete functionality, standardize the processes and the workflows, and leverage the modern platform capabilities. On the other hand, if the current solution uses mostly standard features with the minimal custom development, the migration is usually faster, lower risk, and the more cost effective. The third factor is the timeline and urgency. How quickly does the organization need to achieve its modernization goals? Migration projects are typically faster because the existing business processes and the functionality are largely preserved. The team focuses on moving and validating what already exists rather than redesigning and rebuilding from the scratch. If there is an hard deadline driven by the platform support ending, regulatory requirements, business commitments, or merger and acquisition activities, migration often becomes the preferred options. So if the speed is the highest, priority, migration usually has the advantage. And the last but not least, budget and investment profile. This is the fourth deciding factor. When we evaluate all dimensions together, a pattern usually starts to emerge. Organization experiencing rapid business transformation, managing the extensive customization and planning for long-term innovation often find that rebuilding provides the greatest strategic value. Organizations seeking a faster path with a lower upfront cost and minimal disruption often achieve success with the migration. And the most effective approach is not necessarily the cheapest or the fastest. It is the approach that best aligns technology investment with the business objectives. So with that, I will just cover what are the top mistakes, what happens. The first one is treating this as a technical project. The first and the most dangerous mistake is viewing the move to the Revenue Cloud as a simply technology upgrade. Many companies think they are replacing one coding tool with the another. In reality, Revenue Cloud affects the entire code to cash process. So Revenue Cloud transformation is the business initiative enabled by technology, not technology project with the business impacts. Second mistake is ignoring the business stakeholders into the conversation early enough. Too often, decisions are made by the implementation team and the business is consulted only during the testing and the UAT phase. By that point, expensive design decisions have already been made. Product teams may discover that critical pricing models are missing. Sales teams may find the user experience doesn't support their selling motions. Finance may realize revenue recognition or the contract requirements weren't considered. So, and the stakeholder engagement should happen from day one. Create workshops that include sales, operations, finance, product, IT, customer success, and executive sponsors. So remember, every quote eventually turns into a contract, an order, an invoice, and recognized revenue. Every team affected by that life cycle, and they should be involved from the beginning, not at the time of training or testing or UAT phase. The third important mistake is assuming your existing CPQ product catalog can simply be copied into the Revenue Cloud. For many organizations, the product model becomes the single largest work stream in the entire transformation. So years of customization, the product bundles, pricing exceptions, pricing rules, legacy configuration often accumulate in Salesforce CPQ. The Revenue Cloud introduces a different architecture altogether and often presents an opportunity to simplify, standardize, and streamline processes. This means evaluating your product strategy, hierarchy, bundles, pricing rules, subscription structures, and dependencies. The companies frequently discover that significant portions of their catalog is outdated and rarely used. So product model transformation often requires more effort than the technology migration itself. So this is the key mistakes what we found from our experience. And the last one is the assuming the migration is automated. The final mistake is believing there is a fully automated path from the Salesforce CPQ to the Revenue Cloud. Many leaders expect a simple migration utility that converts configuration, pricing logic, products, workflows, integration automatically transfer from Salesforce CPQ to Revenue Cloud. The reality is more nuanced. While migration accelerators, assessment tools, and the implementation frameworks can reduce efforts, substantial analysis, substantial efforts, redesign are still required. Customization, custom pricing rules, integration dependencies, and approval processes typically require manual evaluation. So there is no magic migration button. Acceleration is possible, but the transformation still requires planning and business decisions. So if you can avoid these four mistakes, you are already ahead of many organizations beginning their revenue cloud journey. So I will be covering the key takeaways from Salesforce CPQ transition to the revenue cloud. The first one is there is no universal answer to this question. Means if you wanted to migrate, wait, or rebuild. The second one is migration is not always the lowest risk option. The third one is rebuilding is not always highest cost option. Waiting can be strategic. And the fifth one is business objective should drive the decisions. So these are the key five takeaways what we got as our experience from our previous Salesforce CPQ transition to the Revenue Cloud. Okay. With this, I will hand it over to my colleague Abhishek, who will cover the customer scenarios. Abhishek.
Thank you, Amit, for the insight. Uh, can you please zoom in a little bit, or do you want me to share my screen?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Is my screen visible, team?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So before going forward, I would like to tell you something that the use cases that we have implemented for customer from Middle East. Okay. So I'll just give some idea about Revenue Cloud before we start. Revenue Cloud basically help us to generate quotations dynamically. Okay. So if you see my first use case, my cursor available? Yeah. Okay. So what we have done is in the left side, you can see the existing business process and their pain points. When we went there to have discovery sessions with client before implementing Revenue Cloud, we identified their pain points. We studied their existing process. So what happens is when ABC trading purchaser, okay, wants to make a purchase from our customer, he basically uh, send out the RFQ, that is the request for quote. Okay, so once the request for quote is received, their salesperson has to go a lot of manual activities, has to go through a lot of manual activities that we have mentioned here. As you can see, for example, I have mentioned the engine oil. This is a product that they want to buy. Okay. Then what salesperson will do? He will check the database for customer pricing, then search previous quotations, contact their pricing managers to identify exact prices. Okay. Verify whether the promotional prices are being active for this particular product or not. Then calculate the expected margin accordingly. And then send the quotation over email. That too, if it has got a lot of price margins levels, then that quotation also need to go through approval process. So all these processes need to be done manually. Okay. So as I have mentioned pain points, the customer specific prices were stored on multiple places. Suppose I am a salesperson. Okay. I need to go to particular application like pricing tool or product master, and then I will have to check as a salesperson whether this price is allocated to this product or not, whether this price is actual latest or not, are there any changes to those prices or not. So yeah, there was no visibility. Okay. Then margin calculations were taking place manually. Sales representative had to go to manual calculations to calculate margins and fix and finalize the product price. Then it has got a lot of manual intervention and human errors were expected. So these were the manual processes and pain points we jotted down. Okay. And against these processes, we implemented Revenue Cloud. And as you can see in Revenue Cloud, all the pain points and all the the challenges they were facing was incorporated and accordingly solution was designed. As you can see, Revenue Cloud automatically identifies product category and currency and customer contract. So the sales representative's life became very easy, very easy. Okay. System automatically fetches all the pricing related data. As you can see, there are specific price books, last sold price, then standard prices. Okay. Current promotions are applicable to product or not. Then what would be the price after applying those promotional schemes? All the details were fetched on the click, okay, on a single button of click to salesperson. Now you can see step 3, the selling price, discount margin, total quote value. These these calculations were done automatically via Revenue Cloud. Okay, and if there is any deviation in profit margins, Revenue Cloud supports approval process also. In step 4, you can see if the margin is well above 22%, then yes, we are in a good place. Okay, there is no approval needed. But if the margin is comes down, suppose say it is less than 22%, then approval should go to pricing manager. If margin is below that as well, like less than 17%, it will definitely need the additional approval, like regional head or commercial head or something like that. So once it is approved, then Revenue Cloud generates professional PDF codes, version numbers, approval history, and validity date. So the crux of this slide is what manual process that used to take almost 2 days to send a proposal to customer. After implementing Revenue Cloud, it brings down to hardly 15 to 20 minutes process. Okay. So I would like to ask you guys if you have any questions on this slide. Are we good to move to next slide?
Yeah, Abhishek, you can move to the next slide.
All right.
Yeah.
So our use case 2 basically explains code to order with ERP integration. Before implementing Revenue Cloud, Salesforce Revenue Cloud, most of the clients or customers, they have their own legacy system or ERP system. For current customer, we have Oracle. They use Oracle as their ERP system. Okay. So before implementing Revenue Cloud, they used to approve all the quotations by email. Okay. Sales executive used to manually create sales orders inside ERP. And he had to go through a lot of multiple activities, or he had to put data manually again and again. As you can see, customer details or product details, quantity details, price details. So in our previous use case, we saw he gathered all the information to create quote manually, and then while creating order, he had to put a lot of details again in ERP. So the pain points are basically accounting verifications of pricing again. He had to do the lot of verifications related to pricing, and then stock verification. So they had their inventory management system as well. Since Revenue Cloud was not implemented, they also need to check their stock count, whether the product is available or not for different regions. So these were all their pain points. But after implementing Revenue Cloud solution, uh, customer was able to receive the quote efficiently, and then Revenue Cloud automatically changes the status of accepted. Quote converts into sales order. Order is sent automatically to ERP Fusion through integration. So to achieve this, we also implemented integration with Oracle, and we used APIs and Oracle connectors, OIC connectors that is called as, and ultimately Oracle ERP sends the order number back to Salesforce to get the common primary key when where Oracle can identify what exactly we are sending to Salesforce, and Salesforce can identify exactly what details we are sending to Oracle, and vice versa. So it also became really efficient way of order processing. Any questions on this slide, team? So this was the use case 2 that we implemented. And in use case 3, we would like to highlight that Revenue Cloud capability is of generating dynamic pricing based on the customer and volume. If you could see on the left side, there are three type of customers, customer A, B, and C. Okay. They are ordering same kind of a product, like if you can see, but with the different quantities. Okay. Uh, Customer A is asking for 100 drums. Customer B is asking for 1000 drums. Customer C is asking for 20 drums. But their pricings are different. Customer A is getting 5% discount. Customer B is getting 12% discount. And customer C is getting standard price. So all this pricing strategy and pricing logics can be built in Revenue Cloud solution. Before implementing Revenue Cloud solution, their sales representative had to do all these verifications and these activities manually. Okay. Large chances of mistakes were there. Sales executive calculated pricing manually, and there was a possibility of human errors. And once we implemented Revenue Cloud solutions, all these calculations were done dynamically in at quotation levels. So the crux of this slide is the system automatically recommends the correct selling price once we put all the details. And then if sales executive overrides the price, approval is also getting triggered. Okay, if the margin is lesser as we have configured as compared to whatever business logics rules that we have implemented, then approval is also triggered automatically. So in a way, this also included in Revenue Cloud implementation. Any queries, team? Any questions? I think our next slide is of Q&A. Okay, I would like to highlight the customer benefits as well. By implementing a lot of use cases. I mean, I have just explained three of them. First, the quotation preparation reduced from 1 to 2 days to hardly 15 minutes. Okay, the pricing became consistent. For example, all the representatives or sales representative, they have the centralized pricing catalog, I would say, product and pricing catalog to refer to. Then managements also get complete visibility of process right from lead to cash. Okay, there are no duplicate data entries and then no pricing mismatch. As we mentioned earlier, all the product and pricing catalogs are saved or stored centrally in Revenue Cloud, so everyone gets visibility with consistency. And then single source of truth. Yes, correct. And then complete code to cash is visible to all management people. Uh, Revenue Cloud also supports the dashboards wherein we can give the clarity of entire process. So these are the benefits that any customer gets after implementing the Revenue Cloud.
All right.
Any,
Thank you, Amit, and thank you, Abhishek, for the detailed webinar.
thank
Thank
you
you
so
so
much.
much.
Bye bye.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Thank you, everyone.